The frontier world of Eridan 4 was not a place for the weak. The air was sharp with the smell of iron-rich soil. The winds carried dust that stung the eyes, and the forests beyond the settlement walls were filled with creatures that could tear a man apart in moments. Yet despite all the dangers, humans had come here to build a future. The colony of New Dawn stood as proof of human determination. Its walls were high, its watchtowers manned day and night, and its streets filled with merchants, hunters, and workers who risked everything to survive in this alien land. But humans were not the only ones here. The Beastfolk, a proud alien race with bodies half human, half animal, had claimed this world long before the first human ship had landed. Strong, agile, and deeply bound by tradition, they were respected and feared by settlers. Some traded with them. Few dared to befriend them. None dared to mock them except one man. Captain Darius Holt was a human explorer and a known troublemaker. Tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying the easy confidence of someone who had escaped death more than once. He was both admired and disliked. Many colonists saw him as reckless. Some whispered he was cursed. But all agreed on one thing. Life around Darius was never boring. On a cool evening, the marketplace was alive with noise. Traders shouted over one another, selling fabrics, tools, and weapons. The air buzzed with the voices of different species bartering and arguing. And there, standing in the heart of it all, was Kareth. Kareth was not just any Beastwoman. She was a warrior of her clan, known for her speed and strength in battle. Her furred ears twitched at every sound. Her sharp golden eyes missed nothing, and her tail swayed slowly behind her, a sign of alertness. She wore light armor decorated with the symbols of her people, and the massive spear strapped to her back made most humans step aside when she walked through the crowd. Darius, however, did not step aside. Instead, with that same grin that often got him into trouble, he leaned casually against a stall and called out, loud enough for several bystanders to hear, "Careful, warrior, or I might fall for those sharp eyes of yours." The marketplace froze. Humans stopped mid-conversation. Merchants lowered their voices. Even the children playing near the stalls went silent. Everyone turned to look at him, waiting for the disaster they were sure would follow. Beastfolk were not known for humor when it came to honor. To speak carelessly to one of their warriors was dangerous. Some humans muttered under their breath, "The fool has finally gone too far." Kareth's golden eyes fixed on Darius. For a long moment she said nothing. The silence was heavy, sharp as a drawn blade. Her ears flicked once, her tail stilled, and her expression was unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice low but firm. "You speak boldly, human." Darius's grin widened. Bold words suit a bold woman. A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. No one had ever dared speak to her like that before. No one had ever treated her as if she were approachable. But Kareth did not strike him. She did not shout. She only tilted her head slightly, studying him as though he were a puzzle she had not yet solved. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. The silence broke at once. Humans began whispering to each other in disbelief. "He's insane." She should have torn him apart. Why didn't she answer him? Maybe she's planning something later. Darius only chuckled and shrugged as if nothing unusual had happened. "What? I was only being friendly," he said, though his eyes followed her retreating form with curiosity. For the rest of the evening, the marketplace buzzed with gossip. Some said Kareth had shown mercy. Others whispered she had been insulted and would challenge him soon. A few joked that maybe she had actually liked it, but Darius, sitting at a tavern later that night, couldn't stop thinking about the look in her eyes. It hadn't been anger. It hadn't been disgust. It was something else. Something that unsettled him more than open rage would have. The next morning, Darius was back to his usual routine. He inspected his ship, checked supplies, and planned his next expedition into the wild. Yet the colony wasn't done with the story. Everywhere he went, people gave him looks, half amusement, half pity. Children whispered behind his back, and traders smirked when he passed. "You really don't know when to keep quiet, do you?" said Jonas, his mechanic and oldest friend, as he tightened bolts on a crawler vehicle. "What? You mean yesterday?" Darius replied, pretending innocence. Jonas gave him a flat look. "You flirted with Kareth." "The Kareth, the warrior who once fought off a pack of bloodfang beasts alone, the one whose clan doesn't even let outsiders speak her name without respect. And you thought it was a good idea to compliment her eyes?" Darius grinned. "What can I say? She does have sharp eyes," Jonas groaned. "One day your mouth will get you killed." "Maybe," Darius said, his grin fading into something softer. "But admit it, wasn't she different?" Jonas frowned but didn't answer. That evening, the settlement council held a meeting in the Great Hall. Reports had come in about predators attacking trade routes. Farmers were losing livestock, caravans were being torn apart, and even armed escorts were struggling to fight back. Representatives of both humans and beast folk gathered to discuss the threat. Darius, as a known scout and fighter, was present, and so was Kareth. When she entered the hall, the air grew tense. Her presence was commanding, her gaze sharp. Yet when her eyes briefly landed on Darius, she did not glare. She did not scowl. She only looked at him as if waiting. The meeting dragged on with arguments about who was to blame, who should lead, and how resources should be divided. Humans accused beastfolk of not protecting the borders. Beastfolk accused humans of provoking the predators by expanding too quickly. Voices rose. Fists slammed against the table, and then Kareth stood. The hall fell silent. "The predators care nothing for your arguments," she said firmly. "They grow bold. If nothing is done, they will strike the settlements next. We must hunt them before they hunt us." Her words cut through the noise. The council reluctantly agreed to form a joint task force. Warriors from both sides would be chosen, and to everyone's surprise, Kareth added one more demand. "I will fight beside the human called Darius Holt." The hall erupted with shock. Humans whispered in disbelief. Beastfolk growled in anger. Darius blinked, caught off guard. Jonas muttered beside him, "Now you've really done it." Darius only smiled faintly, though inside, his heart raced. What game was she playing? Why choose him? As the meeting ended, Kareth walked past him. For a moment she stopped, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Words carry weight," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "Do not speak lightly again." And then she was gone. Darius stood frozen. He had thought it was just a joke, a careless flirt. But for Kareth, and perhaps her entire people, it was something else. Something binding. He had no idea what storm he had just stepped into. The sun on Eridan 4 rose like a burning coin, casting red light over the wild forests that stretched far beyond the colony walls. The settlement of New Dawn stirred to life, but inside its walls, people were still whispering about one thing. Kareth had chosen to fight alongside a human. And not just any human, Darius Holt, the reckless explorer who had dared to flirt with her in the market. To most colonists, it was unthinkable. Beastfolk warriors rarely trusted outsiders, and Kareth was one of the fiercest among them. Why would she choose him? Some said it was punishment. Others believed she was testing him before crushing him. A few wondered if the human's reckless charm had truly caught her attention. Darius, however, had little time for gossip. He was too busy preparing for the hunt. The task force gathered at the edge of the colony gates. A dozen humans with rifles and armor stood ready, joined by half a dozen beastfolk warriors carrying spears, blades, and bows. The air was thick with unease, two people standing side by side, but not yet united, and at the center of it all, Kareth. She stood tall, her golden eyes scanning the horizon, her spear resting easily against her shoulder. Her furred ears twitched with every sound, and her tail swayed slowly, calm yet alert. She wore no expression, but her presence commanded silence. Darius walked up beside her, adjusting the strap of his rifle. "Well," he said lightly, "seems like we're partners now." Kareth turned her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. "We are not partners. We are bound by the hunt," Darius smirked. "Sounds like a partnership to me." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment before she looked away, saying nothing. But Darius noticed her ears flick once, almost as if she were annoyed or maybe amused. He couldn't tell. The gate opened, and the task force marched into the wilderness. The forests of Eridan 4 were unlike anything on Earth. Towering trees with glowing bark rose high into the sky, their roots twisting like serpents across the ground. Strange plants emitted soft blue light, and insect-like creatures hummed in the air. But beauty hid danger. The predators that stalked these woods were ruthless, their claws sharper than steel, their teeth strong enough to crush bone. The group moved cautiously, guided by Kareth and her fellow beastfolk, who read the signs of the wild with ease. A broken branch, claw marks on a tree, tracks pressed into the soil, they missed nothing. Darius followed closely behind Kareth, watching the way she moved. She was silent, graceful, and alert, every step measured. He had fought alongside skilled humans before. But something about her was different. She seemed part of the forest itself, like it whispered its secrets to her. Hours passed before they found their first sign of danger. A torn caravan wagon, its wood splintered, its goods scattered. The ground was stained with blood. One of the humans cursed under his breath. "Bloodfangs. The beastfolk warriors sniffed the air, their ears twitching. Kareth crouched low, touching the soil with her clawed fingers. She studied the tracks carefully, then stood. "They hunt in packs," she said. "We are close." The group tightened formation. It didn't take long. The first bloodfang struck from the trees, a massive beast with dark scales, glowing red eyes and jaws lined with serrated teeth. Its roar shook the forest and more answered from the shadows. The task force opened fire. Gunshots echoed through the forest, flashes of light cutting through the dark. Beastfolk warriors charged forward, their weapons clashing against monstrous claws. Kareth leapt into the fray, her spear moving like lightning. With each strike, she cut down a beast, her movements precise and deadly. Her tail lashed behind her, her ears sharp to every sound. She fought like a storm, fearless and unrelenting. Darius fired his rifle, dropping 2 beasts before another lunged at him from the side. He rolled, narrowly avoiding its fangs, and drove his blade into its throat. Blood sprayed across his armor, but he didn't stop. He had faced worse. Through the chaos, his eyes kept finding Kareth. She was breathtaking in battle, a living force of nature. But then he saw a danger she couldn't, one of the predators circling behind her, jaws wide. "Kareth!" he shouted. Without thinking, Darius threw himself forward. He slammed his shoulder into the beast, knocking it off balance. Its claws raked across his side, tearing into his armor, but he gritted his teeth and drove his knife into its neck. The beast collapsed, twitching. Kareth spun, her spear already raised, but froze when she saw him bleeding. For the first time, her golden eyes widened. "You, put yourself in the strike," she said, almost in disbelief. Darius, panting, gave her a crooked grin. "What can I say? I'm a gentleman." For a heartbeat, Kareth stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then she turned back to the battle, fighting with renewed fury. When the last bloodfang fell, silence returned to the forest. Bodies of beasts lay scattered, the ground torn and bloody. The task force stood, catching their breath, counting the wounded. Kareth approached Darius. He was leaning against a tree, pressing his hand to his bleeding side. "You are reckless," she said sharply. "Maybe," Darius replied. "But you're alive, aren't you?" Her ears flicked, and her tail gave a single twitch. For beastfolk, that was a sign of emotion, though whether it was irritation or approval, he couldn't tell. "You risked yourself for me," she said. "Of course I did." His voice was steady. "Isn't that what partners do?" Kareth looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer, so close he could see the faint stripes in her fur, the sharpness of her golden eyes. "Do you understand the weight of your words?" she asked quietly. Darius frowned. "What do you mean?" "When you spoke in the marketplace, you did not speak a joke. To my people, words of that kind are not light. They are a vow, a bond. Do you understand this?" Darius blinked, his grin fading. He thought back to his careless flirt, the way everyone had gasped, the way Kareth had stared at him. He had thought it was harmless. But to her, to her culture, it had meant something else entirely. He swallowed. "I didn't know." Kareth's eyes narrowed, then learned quickly. "For words without meaning are poison. My people despise those who speak what they do not carry in their hearts." Darius was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. Then I'll prove I mean it." Her ears flicked again, and she tilted her head, studying him. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. But Darius felt something shift. This wasn't just about a hunt anymore. This was about trust, about honor, about something far greater than a careless joke. The group returned to the colony with their victory, dragging the carcasses of the predators behind them. The settlers cheered, but the whispers about Darius and Kareth only grew louder. Humans called him a fool. Beastfolk muttered that Kareth was making a dangerous mistake, yet neither of them spoke of it. Not yet. That night, as the fires burned outside the settlement and warriors celebrated, Darius sat alone, staring into the flames. His side still hurt from the wound, but that wasn't what troubled him. He remembered Kareth's words. Words are not light. They are a vow. For the first time, he wondered if his life had just taken a turn he could never undo. The night was alive with celebration. Fires burned in the open square of New Dawn, their smoke curling into the dark sky. Hunters roasted the meat of the slain predators, and both humans and beastfolk filled the air with drums, cheers, and clashing cups. Victory against the Bloodfangs was rare, and tonight, the colony tasted triumph. But Darius Holt did not sit at the fireside feast. Instead, he leaned against the outer wall of the settlement, his side bandaged, his rifle at his shoulder. He had been offered a seat of honor, a mug of strong drink, even the company of admirers. Yet his thoughts were elsewhere. His eyes kept drifting to the other side of the square, where Kareth stood surrounded by her people. The Beastwoman was silent, but her presence was magnetic. Warriors clapped her on the back, elders nodded in respect, and younger beastfolk whispered her name in awe. She had fought like a storm that day, and none could deny it. Yet despite the honor, her golden eyes flicked toward Darius more than once. Each time he felt it like a strike to the chest. He wasn't sure what he had awakened. Later, when the fires burned lower and the crowd thinned, Kareth left the square. Darius followed at a distance, his boots crunching softly on gravel. She walked toward the edge of the settlement past the last torchlight until the forest loomed in shadow. "Are you planning to follow me all night, human?" she said without turning. Darius stopped. "Depends. Were you planning to disappear without saying anything?" Kareth faced him then, her eyes sharp in the moonlight. "You bleed still, yet you wander." He touched his side with a faint grin. "I've bled worse. Besides, I wanted answers." She studied him for a long moment, then turned and sat on a stone by the tree line. "Then ask." Darius approached and sat across from her. The air was cool, filled with the distant sounds of night creatures. "What did you mean earlier?" he asked. "About my words being more than just words?" Kareth's ears twitched. Her tail wrapped around her legs and her gaze grew distant. "Among my people, speech is not empty. To speak is to bind. When you praised my eyes before all, it was not a game. It was a declaration." Darius frowned. "A declaration of what?" "That you see me," she said softly. "That you would choose me. In my culture, such words are not play." The weight of her explanation pressed down on him. He remembered the way the market had fallen silent, the way her people had stared. He had thought it was harmless flirting, but to them, to her, it was something far deeper. "I didn't know," he admitted. Kareth's gaze hardened. "Ignorance does not free you from meaning. Many speak promises without heart. My people despise such ones." Darius leaned back, staring at the stars. "So what happens now? Do your people expect me to marry you or something?" Kareth tilted her head, confusion flickering in her eyes. "Marriage? I do not know this human word. But I know this, if your heart carries no weight, then you insulted me before all. And that cannot be ignored." Darius rubbed his face with his hand. "Great. I've managed to insult the deadliest warrior in the colony. Just my luck," Kareth's ears flicked. "Yet you bled for me." He looked at her sharply. "What? You threw yourself into the strike. You saved me, though you did not have to. That is not the act of one whose words are false." For a moment silence hung between them. Then slowly, Kareth lowered her spear beside her and leaned closer. "Tell me, human," she said quietly, "were your words only play, or do you carry them still?" Darius met her golden eyes, and for the first time, he felt the seriousness of his own actions. He had spoken without thought, but his choices since then, fighting beside her, saving her, refusing to step back, had built something real. "I don't know what they meant to me at first," he said honestly. "But now I think maybe they mean more than I realized." Kareth studied him, her ears twitching once. Then she leaned back, her expression unreadable. "We will see. Fire shows what is true. Words mean nothing without proof." The next days were filled with tension. Word of Kareth's declaration spread through the colony. Humans whispered that Darius was doomed, that he had entangled himself in alien customs he didn't understand. Beastfolk eyed him with suspicion, some with open hostility. When he walked through the market, voices followed him. Why would she choose him? He is reckless. He is weak. Perhaps she will break him. Darius ignored them. But inside he felt the weight of eyes always watching. Kareth, meanwhile, grew no softer. She trained daily, her spear flashing in the air, her body moving with deadly grace. Yet more than once, Darius caught her watching him from a distance. When their eyes met, she never looked away first. The bond between them was tested sooner than expected. A week after the hunt, another predator attack struck, this time near the farm south of the colony. A small group of settlers had been ambushed, and survivors fled back screaming of larger, stronger beasts unlike the bloodfangs before. The council called for an immediate response. Kareth volunteered without hesitation. Darius stepped forward as well. Some humans protested. He is injured still, Beastfolk elders growled. He is not of our kind. But Kareth silenced them with a single statement. If he does not stand, then I will not stand either. The argument ended there. The hunting party was formed, and once again Darius found himself marching beside her into the wild. The attack site was worse than they expected. Fields of tall grass lay flattened, wagons torn apart and livestock slaughtered. The smell of blood hung heavy in the air. They are changing, Kareth murmured, crouching by a claw mark carved deep into a fence post. These are not blood fangs. Something else drives them. The group spread out cautiously. Darius kept his rifle raised, scanning the grasslands. His side still ached, but he pushed the pain away. Suddenly, a beast lunged from the grass. Taller than a man, its hide was plated with bone, its jaws snapping with unnatural strength. It slammed into the front line, scattering warriors. More followed. The fight erupted instantly. Kareth roared a battle cry, her spear cutting down the first beast that charged her. Darius fired his rifle, bullets tearing into another predator. But there were too many, and they fought with strange frenzy as if driven by something unseen. At one point, 3 beasts cornered Darius. His rifle jammed, and he was forced to draw his blade. He fought desperately, parrying claws, dodging teeth. He managed to kill one, but another knocked him to the ground, its jaws snapping inches from his throat. And then Kareth was there. She drove her spear clean through the beast's chest, dragging it off him. Her golden eyes burned as she pulled him to his feet. "You fight like a fool," she growled. Darius, panting, smirked weakly. "Maybe, but I'm your fool, right?" For the first time, Kareth's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Perhaps. The battle raged on until the last beast fell. The fields were littered with corpses, both human and beast folk wounded, but the enemy was defeated. That night, around the campfire, Kareth sat beside Darius for the first time. The warriors around them whispered but did not approach. "You did not flee," she said quietly. "Wouldn't look good if I left you to do all the work," he replied. Her tail flicked once. "You speak lightly, but your heart fights true. This I respect." The fire crackled between them. Darius studied her face, the sharp lines, the fierce eyes. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, proud, unyielding, but with a strength that drew him in. And Kareth, though she said nothing more, did not move away. For the first time, she allowed the silence between them to be, not hostile, but shared. In the days that followed, word of their partnership spread faster than before. Beastfolk whispered that Kareth was showing softness no one had seen. Humans accused Darius of endangering relations with foolishness, but for Darius, none of that mattered. What mattered was the fire that grew each time he stood beside her, each time her golden eyes lingered on him, each time she did not push him away. It was no longer just a joke. It was becoming something real. The bond between Darius and Kareth had grown stronger with every hunt, every battle, and every shared fire. Yet strength alone was not enough to silence whispers. Both humans and beastfolk spoke behind their backs, some with amusement, others with open anger. Among the beastfolk, the unrest grew louder. Their warrior Kareth, the fiercest of her clan, had begun to show signs of loyalty, perhaps even closeness to a human outsider. To many, this was unacceptable. To bind herself to one whose words were careless and whose blood was not of their kind. It was seen as shameful. One evening, the summons came. Kareth's clan elders, ancient beastfolk whose fur was streaked with gray and whose eyes burned with wisdom, called for her to appear before them. And not just her. Darius was ordered to attend as well. The great hall of the beastfolk was unlike anything in the human colony. Built from stone and timber taken from the forest, it was vast and dimly lit, with carvings of hunts and battles etched into the walls. Torches crackled in iron stands, casting shadows that seemed alive. Darius stood beside Kareth at the center of the hall. Around them, beastfolk warriors lined the walls, their eyes sharp and unwelcoming. At the far end sat the elders, their spears laid across their knees, their tails flicking slowly in judgment. One elder rose, his voice deep and commanding. "Kareth of the Ashclaw, you stand before us with a shadow over your honor. You have bound yourself to a human, one whose tongue is reckless and whose ways are foreign. Speak, why should we accept this?" Kareth did not bow. Her voice was steady. "Because he has proven himself in battle, because he carries his words with his blood. He does not flee. He does not lie." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some growled in disapproval, others whispered doubt. The elder's gaze shifted to Darius. "And you, human," he said sharply. "Why do you stand at her side? Do you understand what it means? Your words are not play to us. They are oath. Do you claim them still?" Every eye in the hall fixed on Darius. He felt the weight of their judgment pressing down like stone. He could not smile his way out of this. "Not here," he drew a breath. "When I first spoke, I didn't understand. I thought it was just words. But now I do. And I'll say this, I don't take them back. I meant what I said, even if it took me time to see it. Kareth deserves truth, not excuses. And I'll stand by her." The hall erupted in noise, growls, shouts, arguments. The elders pounded their spears on the ground until silence returned. Then let it be tested, the elder declared. By our law, one who binds himself to us must prove his honor. Human Darius Holt, you will face the trial of fire and shadow. If you pass, you may stand as Kareth's equal. If you fail, you will leave this place in disgrace or not leave at all. Outside the hall, Darius paced while Kareth spoke quietly with her kin. The trial. He didn't know what it meant, but the way the beast folk muttered about it told him it was deadly. Kareth joined him after a time, her expression hard. You should refuse, she said firmly. The trial is not for humans. It is meant to test the spirit of my kind. Few survive. Darius shook his head. If I walk away, then everything I've said means nothing. You'd be shamed for trusting me. I won't do that to you. Her ears flicked, her tail lashing once. You are stubborn. And you're worth being stubborn for, he said quietly. Kareth looked at him for a long time, her golden eyes unreadable. Then at last she gave a slow nod. Very well. But if you fall, I will not forgive you for dying so easily. The trial began at dawn. The beast folk led Darius to a sacred cave at the edge of the forest, its entrance carved with ancient runes. The air was thick with incense smoke, the ground marked with claw-scratched symbols of power. An elder spoke. Inside, you will face what you fear. You will fight not only with blade, but with spirit. If your heart is false, the shadows will consume you. If your courage is weak, the fire will burn you. Only truth survives. Darius tightened his grip on his knife. He glanced once at Kareth. She stood outside the circle, her spear in hand, her gaze locked on him. She gave a single nod. Then he stepped inside. The cave was dark, silent except for the drip of water and the faint crackle of unseen flames. Shadows danced across the walls, moving like living things. At first, Darius thought it was just a test of endurance, but soon the shadows began to change. They took shape. Human shapes. He saw faces from his past, men and women he had served with, comrades lost in battles across the stars. He heard their voices, accusing, mocking, demanding. You left us behind. You couldn't save us. You speak brave words now, but where was your courage then? Darius's heart pounded. These were wounds he had buried long ago. He gritted his teeth and swung his knife, slashing through the illusions. But more came. The cave twisted around him, the shadows pressing in. Then he saw Kareth. Not the real one, but a shadow version, her eyes cold, her voice sharp. You lied, she hissed. You played with me. You spoke without truth. You will betray me as you betrayed them. The words cut deeper than any claw. Darius fell to his knees, his chest tight. He wanted to shout, to deny it, but the shadows pressed harder. His mind spun, and then through the storm, he remembered the real Kareth, the way she had fought beside him, the way she had trusted him, the way her eyes had softened, even for a moment. At his words, he forced himself to stand. His voice rang in the cave. No, I won't betray her. Not her, not ever. I may have failed before, but I won't fail her. My words are hers now, and I'll carry them to the end. The shadows shrieked, the illusions burning away in white fire. The cave shook, the walls splitting with light, and then silence. Darius stood alone, his body trembling, sweat pouring down his face. The shadows were gone. Only a faint glow remained, leading him back to the surface. When he stepped out of the cave, the beast folk were waiting. The elders stared at him with unreadable eyes. Kareth stood at the front, her spear lowered, her breath caught. Darius walked forward, bloodied but unbroken. I'm still here. The elders conferred in low voices. Finally one stood. He has faced the trial, he has spoken truth, and the shadows did not claim him. By our law he stands, the warriors murmured in shock. Some growled in anger, but none dared defy the ruling. Kareth stepped forward. For the first time in public, she placed her hand on Darius's shoulder. Then he stands with me. The hall erupted with noise, some in approval, others in fury. But it no longer mattered. By law, Darius had proven himself. That night, Kareth and Darius sat by the fire outside the settlement, away from the noise of the crowd. She studied him quietly for a long time before speaking. You faced the shadows. You saw truth. And you still stand? Darius gave a tired grin. Told you. I'm stubborn. Her tail flicked once, a sign of amusement. More than stubborn. You carry weight now. Your words are no longer hollow. He met her eyes. Good, because I meant them. Kareth's gaze softened just for a moment. Then perhaps, you are not such a fool after all. The fire crackled between them, sparks rising into the night. For the first time there was no distance, no hostility, only the beginning of something forged in truth and tested by fire. The trial of honor had changed everything. Darius was no longer seen as a careless human who spoke without thought. He was now the one who faced shadows and survived, the one who carried truth on his back. The elders had recognized his worth, though many warriors still growled when he passed. But beyond the quarrels of pride and tradition, a greater threat loomed for weeks. Rumors had spread of strange lights in the sky and creatures seen at the edges of the forest, machines that walked without life, weapons that moved without sound. The humans called them harvesters, mechanical scouts sent by an alien race that consumed whole worlds. The beast folk had faced predators and wars, but nothing like this, and the humans in their colony were too few to stand alone. Darius knew the truth. Unless they stood together, both peoples would fall. The warning came at dusk. A crimson glow spread across the horizon, followed by the distant roar of engines. The harvesters had arrived in force. Machines as tall as trees marched toward the valley, their metallic bodies gleaming in the fading light. Swarms of drones flew above them, black shapes blotting out the stars. The beast folk howled in alarm. The humans scrambled to prepare defenses. Fear rippled through both groups. Darius stood in the center of the camp, his voice cutting through the noise. They're not here for one of us. They're here for all of us. Human or beast folk, it doesn't matter. If we fight apart, we die apart. If we fight together, we can drive them back. Some listened. Others snarled in doubt. A beast folk warrior spat at the ground. Why should we fight beside humans? Their weapons are weak. Their walls are thin. Darius did not back down. And why should humans fight beside you? You doubt us, you insult us. But the truth is this, we both bleed. We both burn. And we both want to live. That's reason enough, the crowd murmured. Tension hung thick. Then Kareth stepped forward, her spear in hand. Her voice rang with authority. I fought beside him. I saw his truth. If he stands, I stand. If you call yourselves Ashclaw, if you call yourselves warriors, then stand with us or live with shame. Her words cut like steel. One by one, beast folk warriors lowered their heads in respect. Humans tightened their grips on their rifles. For the first time, both sides looked not at each other, but at the enemy marching closer. The battle began at dawn. The valley shook as the harvesters advanced, their steps crushing trees and stone. Energy weapons lit the sky with burning light. Darius fought at the front, rifle in hand, Kareth at his side with her spear gleaming. Together they led charges against the machines, striking with both human firepower and beast folk fury. The humans' weapons tore through drones, their bullets and explosives breaking the smaller machines apart. The beast folk leapt onto towering harvesters, their claws and spears tearing at exposed joints, their roars echoing like thunder. But the enemy was endless. For every machine destroyed, two more emerged from the smoke. Darius felt despair clawing at him, his rifle overheated, the metal searing his hands. He ducked behind a shattered boulder as blasts scorched the ground around him. Kareth slammed her spear through a drone and landed beside him, blood streaking her fur. We cannot hold them, she growled. Darius scanned the battlefield. Then he saw it. At the center of the invading force stood a massive harvester larger than any other, its core glowing with unnatural light. That's it, he said. The command unit. If we take it down, the rest will fall apart. Kareth bared her fangs in a grim smile. Then we end this. The path to the command unit was chaos. Darius and Kareth fought through waves of machines, their bodies bruised, their breaths ragged. Humans covered their advance with gunfire. Beastfolk warriors cleared paths with claws and blades. At last they reached the giant harvester. Its body towered over them like a mountain of steel, its glowing core pulsing with energy. Darius shouted over the noise. I'll climb it. Cover me, Kareth snarled. You'll be killed. Then kill it before it kills me. He snapped back. Without waiting, he ran, dodging blasts, and began climbing the machine's side. His hands burned against the hot metal, his muscles screaming with every pull. Drones swarmed to stop him, but Kareth hurled her spear with perfect aim, striking them down one by one. At the top, Darius reached the glowing core. He ripped a grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and jammed it deep into the crack of the machine's plating. The explosion was deafening. The core shattered in a blinding flash. The giant harvester let out a metallic shriek, its body collapsing in on itself. Across the battlefield, the other machines faltered, their movements jerky and broken before they collapsed into silence. The valley was still. Smoke rose into the sky. The ground was littered with broken metal and scorched earth. They had won. Silence lingered for a long time. Humans and beastfolk alike stared at the wreckage, stunned. Then slowly, cheers rose. Human voices shouted in triumph. Beastfolk howls echoed across the valley. For the first time, the two sides cheered together. Darius stood amid the wreckage, his chest heaving, his body aching. Kareth approached, her fur singed, her spear cracked. She looked at him, her golden eyes fierce but soft. "You climbed fire and shadow, and you did not fall," she said quietly. Darius gave a tired grin. "Told you. I don't fall easy." She studied him for a long time, then nodded once. "Then perhaps you are truly one of us." In the days that followed, the valley changed. The humans and beast folk no longer kept apart. They shared fires, shared food, shared stories. Wounds were tended without care for whether the blood was red or gold. The elders declared a new pact, an alliance not of convenience, but of survival and respect. The humans would share their weapons and knowledge. The beast folk would share their strength and land. Together, they would prepare for when the harvesters returned, for surely they would. And at the heart of this alliance stood Darius and Kareth, symbols of what was possible. Some still doubted. Some still whispered, but no one could deny what they had seen. A human and a beast woman standing side by side, fighting as one. One evening, as the stars spread across the sky, Darius sat on a hill overlooking the valley. Kareth sat beside him, her spear laid across her knees. "You changed everything," she said after a long silence. Darius shook his head. "No, we changed everything." Her tail flicked, her ears twitching with faint amusement. Strange words from a man who once spoke without care. "Guess I had a good teacher," he said, glancing at her. For a moment their eyes met. No words were needed. The bond between them had been forged in fire, shadow, and battle. It was unbreakable. Kareth gave a low rumble, almost like a purr, before looking back at the stars. "Then let the stars bear witness. Whatever comes, we stand together." Darius leaned back, the night wind cool against his skin. "Yeah," he said softly. "Together." Above them the stars burned bright, uncaring, eternal. But for two warriors on a hill, the future no longer felt impossible.